The year is 1720. Emperor Kangxi of the glorious Qing dynasty is killing it. The empire has consolidated power in various new areas, including what is now Taiwan, Tibet, and part of Central Asia. The population is close to 300 million. The economy is booming through trade, both in land and sea, well, especially in sea because the Sea of China has always been a hub of trade transportation, and the surrounding powers love taxing the ships crossing nearby. The agriculture is obviously one of the staple sources of economic prosperity, as it has been for most of Chinese history at that point, and there are some really cool cultural advancements like this dictionary which I can't understand a single bit of. Fast forward to around a century later, things aren't looking so smooth. To start things off, there is a rebellion. Well, a series of rebellions. Starting with the White Lotus Rebellion, which started as a grassroots religious movement espousing a very niche sect of Buddhism, which led to cracks in the central administrative authority of the Qing dynasty. To make matters worse, a new company was forming at bay, the East India Company. You probably know where this is going. This new company, you see, knew that the state of Qing was in a very wobbly position. Overpopulation, failing reforms, and the worst of all, desperation. A desperate power structure is bound to concede when forced, and so the British East India Company, and to be frank many other European powers also eyeing fresh new territories to exploit, sparked the Opium Wars. This is where the two China part begins. You see, after the start of Opium Wars, China was pushed into what is now known as the Century of Humiliation. In the first Opium War, Qing dynasty realized that the Lotus Rebellion and a lot of other unfavorable factors made it practically impossible to continue the war. So they signed the treaty that ceded away the island of Hong Kong to the British in 1842. The British and other colonial sentiment of a desperate Qing dynasty being complacent was proven right, yet again. To make matters even worse, 1850 saw the start of Taiping Rebellion, one of the worst rebellions in history, with an estimated death toll of 40 million people. Yeah, that's the population of several countries in Europe combined. This sort of political and societal chaos was unprecedented in Chinese history, though the foreign powers knew they were playing all the cards right. This is essentially when the fall of Qing dynasty began. Oh, and right after the Taiping Rebellion, Sun Yat-sen, the founder of one of the two Chinas we're going to be talking about, was born. But that's for later. For now, Qing dynasty has to cling to power with that evaporating influence and authority they have over their people. More failed reforms, the most spectacular ones being the self-strengthening reform, which arguably failed but some academics argue ultimately succeeded in essence, because the Qing military being modernized during its enforcement, though it inevitably didn't stop it from failing. Then the 100 Days Reform in 1898, which was actually 103 days, but we don't talk about that. Emperor Guangxu, who was responsible for this reform, knew that China was in deep trouble. The colonizers, the unequal treaties, so this reform was a last-ditch attempt to save the empire from falling. It failed. The year is 1899. There's widespread poverty because the colonizers are exploiting the life out of everything, literally. People are fed up of foreign rule, and so they initiate the Boxer Rebellion, the third major rebellion in a few decades aimed at kicking out the foreigners once and for all, which also failed. It is not called a century of humiliation for no reason. Around 20 years prior to the Boxer Rebellion, Mao Zedong, the founder of the other communist China we're going to be talking about, was born. He was around 10 during the rebellion, perhaps still in the rural province of Hunan. Sun Yat-sen, however, was an old man actively engaged in the Boxer Rebellion, and even sparked another one soon after, which failed too, but the major rebellion 10 years after this won, the Xinhai Revolution of 1911. This was when Sun, along with his countrymen, seeing the absolute state of China as insufferable due to the weak influence of the Qing administration, finally toppled the dynasty that established the Republic of China. The first Chinese state with the Western philosophical canon as its foundation after almost 2,000 years of imperial rule up until that point. The last Qing emperor was abdicated in summer of 1912, and Sun Yat-sen became the first provisional president of the Republic of China. Now, as the first president of an enormous nation fresh out of dynastic rule, Sun had an immense responsibility of consolidating the nation's political structure and having real, tangible effects on his citizens. So he founded the Kuomintang, or the KMT for short, in order to modernize Chinese society and declare three principles of the people: nationalism, democracy, and welfare. The KMT was the ruling party because they were the only party until a former Qing dynasty general, Yuan Sheke, is given the official role as president, and he literally declares himself Emperor of China in a democracy. The Republic of China ceases to exist for several years until Sun Yat-sen flees to Japan and calls for a second revolution against Yuan this time. This guy, Yuan, is forced to abdicate as the Emperor of China in a very short amount of time due to his worsening health and pressure from the warlords up in the north, a region which was already fragmented from the beginning of 1911 as the fall of Qing dynasty left a huge power vacuum. Now, after the death of the self-proclaimed Emperor of China in 1916, all of China was back into the pre-revolution chaos. The generals under Yuan turned into regional warlords, ignoring the central government of the KMT in Guangzhou and prioritizing regional control. Then continued his symbolic leadership, but it was well known that things were shaky. While all this chaos was taking place, just across the Mongolian desert, Russia was having its own revolution under Vladimir Lenin. The Bolsheviks overthrew the Russian Republic and established the precursor to the Soviet Union, followed by the Russian Civil War, which lasted until 1921. This Bolshevik revolution inspired Chinese intellectuals disillusioned with the warlord chaos and Western imperialism. Marxism offered a radical solution to unify and modernize China. The May 4th movement in 1919, a student-led protest, boosted leftist ideas, especially in the face of both Western imperialism, Japanese invasion, and the incompetence of nationalist government under Sun Yat-sen in containing all of this. The pioneers of this movement were two key figures, Shen Duxiu and Li Dezhou, the first major academic figures who started using terms like groundbreaking to describe Lenin's Bolshevik revolution and regarded it as a win for all oppressed people around the world. They were full-on communists advocating for world revolution. There was no denying that, and so they established the Communist Party of China, or the CCP, in Shanghai in 1921. Early leaders including Shen Duxiu and Li Dezhou, a mentor of Mao Zedong at Peking University. A 27-year-old Mao, then a teacher and librarian from Hunan, attended the CCP's founding congress as a delegate. Inspired by Marxism and peasant struggles, he joined to organize rural workers, though he wasn't a leader yet. He focused on labor organizing in Hunan, leading strikes such as with the Anyuan miners in 1922. Sun Yat-sen by this time had rebuilt the fragmented KMT in the south from Guangzhou, and the new Communist Party caught his attention. It was something new for him amidst the authoritarian warlord chaos. So in 1923, he formed a coalition with the CCP aiming to unify China and defeat the warlords. This coalition is called the First United Front, and Mao joined the KMT as a CCP member in 1923, working in its propaganda department in Shanghai, aligning with Sun's coalition strategy while building communist networks for its own visions of a complete revolution. By this time, a new player was gaining traction within the KMT, Chiang Kai-shek, a seasoned military man under Sun, graduating from one of the most influential and elite military academies in China at the time. Chiang was impatient in exercising power. He had seen the failures under Sun during Yuan Shike's drama, knowing full well that he was what Sun lacked, even though he respected him. Chiang was both a soldier and an idealist. By 1935, things were going smooth until the morning of March 12. Sun Yat-sen succumbed to his illness and died. An immediate power struggle ensued, with Chiang Kai-shek becoming the leader. Mao, along with other CCP members at the time, were skeptical of Chiang, but supported him regardless as the stakes for the nation were too high. Warlords up in the north, with colonial pressures and the Japanese invasion, they could not afford to be divided. In 1926, Chiang, ever the impatient to fix the KMT, launched the Northern Expedition campaign to defeat the warlords and unify China under KMT rule, with CCP support. By early 1928, he had captured Beijing, ending major warlord power, though pockets persisted. After this, the KMT's right wing, led by Chiang, distrusted the CCP's growing influence among the peasants and workers. The CCP aimed for a broader revolution, clashing with the KMT elites, favoring stability, and the tensions hit at a tipping point in late 1928 when Chiang turned on the CCP, ordering a massacre in Shanghai. KMT troops and gangsters killed or arrested thousands of communists, ending the First United Front. The CCP was driven underground or to rural bases. Mao in Hunan organized the Autumn Harvest Uprising in September of 1927 against the landlords, but it failed. He fled to Xinjiang Mountains, forming a rural guerrilla base with Zhu Dei, a lifelong friend, shifting CCP focus to peasant support. Chiang during this time was consolidating power. Well, so was Mao, but first Chiang established the ROC capital in Nanjing, ruling from 1928. His government faced warlord remnants, Japanese aggression, and a lot of internal corruption. Mao at the same time established the Jiangxi Soviet, a communist enclave. When Chiang found out, he tried to suppress it by launching an encirclement campaign. The first one failed. The second one also failed. The third one failed. The fourth one, failed. The fifth one finally succeeded, which in 1934 led to Mao and his men fleeing, paving way for the legendary Long March, a 6,000-mile retreat where Mao became an almost mythic figure within the party. The Civil War had officially begun, but it was not long until Japan's invasion. The Second Sino-Japanese War forced a truce between the KMT and CCP. Mao led guerrilla resistance in the north, Chiang fought conventional battles, but rivalry persisted between them. Japan was ruthless. Unfortunately for the Chinese, Japan had to face two sons being delivered by the USA. It was devastating and sent shockwaves throughout the region, leading to an eventual Japanese surrender and continuation of the Civil War. After Japan's surrender, peace talks between the two parties failed. The Chinese Civil War restarted in 1946, with the CCP's People's Liberation Army, or the BLA, gaining ground due to peasant support and KMT mismanagement. Stakes were higher than ever, and both sides were incredibly hell-bent on keeping power. Internal corruption had ruined the KMT by the late 40s, and increasing appeal and conscription of the CCP's PLA led to massive shifts in the number of soldiers from a few thousand during the Long March to several 100,000 now. Chiang, though competent enough, knew that the odds were stacking against him, and Mao would certainly take advantage of him. He did. CCP victory like the Huihai campaign in 1948 delivered a massive blow to KMT control. By early 1949, Chiang's forces collapsed as Mao proclaimed the People's Republic of China on October 1, 1949, in Beijing. He initiated land reforms, industrialization, and purges to consolidate communist rule. And on December 8, 1949, a few months after the proclamation, Chiang fled mainland China and relocated the government of Republic of China to the island of Taiwan, with 2 million refugees, declaring it a temporary capital, but with a catch. He still claimed all of China and didn't recognize the CCP-controlled territories. From 1949 until the early 1990s, the ROC officially claimed sovereignty over the entire Chinese mainland territory, viewing the PRC as an illegitimate rebel regime. This was reflected in its constitution, maps, rhetoric, even as it only controlled Taiwan and nearby islands like Kinmen and Matsu. The ROC stance was rooted in its pre-1949 status as China's government and its UN seat until 1971. Mao and the PRC, on the other hand, recognized Taiwan's existence as a geographical entity, but not as a separate sovereign state. The PRC claimed Taiwan as an inseparable part of China, labeling it a rogue province under the One China principle. This meant Mao acknowledged Taiwan's physical control by the ROC but denied its legitimacy, asserting that it would be reunified with the mainland under PRC rule. One claimed the mainland when clung to an island, two Chinas, same roots, different flags everywhere all at once. Thank you for watching.